You won't get your ex back until you become a challenge. Period. That's not enough. You have to do a lot more things along the way, but it's necessary. And that's regardless of the situation. In this video, I'll tell you why this is so important. I'll try to prove it and show the first examples of how exactly to become a challenge. Let's start by explaining exactly what I mean by becoming a challenge for your ex. I'll present this in great detail shortly based on several stories you're going to hear. But in a nutshell, you have to convince your ex that you don't care anymore, that now you're the one who doesn't want to go back. And now they would have to start making an effort for you. And that's actually where the biggest controversy lies, because on one hand, with all your heart, you want to go back to this person, you want to fight, you want them back, but you have to fake something you don't really feel. This is where the accusation of manipulation comes in, the accusation that it shouldn't be this way, and that it's not beautiful, that it's almost immoral, and so on. And that's the truth. I mean, if we lived in a fairy tale world, it would be ideal if you just showed your ex how much you've realized your mistakes, how much you care, how much now you'll be a different person in this relationship because you truly learned a lot during this breakup. That would be enough for your ex to come back. But unfortunately, we don't live in a fairy tale. We live in a brutal reality. And unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. And you've probably already seen that. You probably know that begging doesn't work. Bringing up the breakup not only doesn't work, but it pushes your ex further away from you. You probably know that the harder you try, the more you push that person away. And constant efforts won't add anything more. However, becoming a challenge, even though it's ugly, even though it shouldn't work like that, even though it might border on manipulation, it works. It works very powerfully and is, I'll say it again, an indispensable part of getting an ex back. Until you become a challenge for that person, you won't be able to revive those feelings that person had for you until recently, and you won't have the right to get that person back. And I say this with full awareness based on over a decade of experience and several thousand consultations conducted on this very matter. So that's just how our nature works. You can get offended by it, or you can understand it and use it to your advantage, to get back that loved one you want to fight for. And now the question arises, how did I even discover this then? I'm currently 37 years old, and I've basically been doing consultations for 17 years. In small amounts at first, then more and more. And really, for most of my adult life, I've been advising day after day, hour after hour on how to get an ex back. So I have massive experience in this subject. To date, I've conducted over 4,000 individual consultations, meaning I've heard plenty of individual true stories. And I learned the most interesting things from people who had previously broken up for some reason. And then something happened that made these people call me now, wanting more than anything to get back the person whose relationship they ended themselves. So it was very interesting what happened along the way. And to hear that story, regarding what that ex did, that now my client started to care so much that he can't think of anything else, that he's in a phase of such deep love, that was actually very revealing. And that's exactly how I discovered how being a challenge works. Because all these types of stories, when someone broke up before and now wants to get back together, every single one, without exception, were always based on the same mechanism. Suddenly that ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend became a challenge. And now the person who broke up starts to care very deeply. To help you understand even better, let me tell you a story about a client that I still remember very well today, and a technique that came out of it. Some time ago, I had a consultation with a client who was in a very long relationship and broke up with his girlfriend because the relationship no longer suited him. He fell out of love. He didn't care. There were also some arguments, hostility, a standard breakup. He decided it was over, that he'd had enough, and it was his firm decision that he was ending the relationship. And this girl was chasing him, asking him to come back. Nothing worked. He was absolutely adamant, and suddenly the chasing and asking stopped. So there was peace. He went on with his life. A month or a month and a half passed. Maybe I don't remember exactly now, but finally he got a phone call. After that time, when there had been a bit of a break, when he was already a bit curious about what was going on with his ex, and it was a call from the girl's sister, who told him something like this. Listen, I have something very important to tell you, because I always rooted for you and my sister to be together. You're my favorite brother-in-law and so on. Only you have to tell me, swear to me that my sister will never find out that you know this from me. And my client said, okay, sure. And then the sister told him that his ex met someone and is starting to see someone. If my client doesn't do anything about it now, his ex will most likely enter a new relationship soon. End of message. My client hung up the phone, and from a state of total indifference, and the fact that he wasn't thinking about his ex at all, didn't want to go back to her, he suddenly flipped. And those emotions that were once in him, that were alive, came to the surface again. He started overthinking it. Those feelings that were there, because he'd been in love with this girl for a long time, started coming out. And after a while, he started thinking about it almost obsessively. He felt really strongly that if he didn't do anything, he could lose her at any moment. And he fell in love with her again. He wanted to fight for her again. She didn't actually even lift a finger in that direction. Of course, this is just one of many examples. I found out for myself years ago. It was 2011. I went to Ibiza then. My then ex-girlfriend, with whom I had ended the relationship a few months earlier, got back in touch with me. It was me who ended the relationship then. There was a short break in contact. She reached out and we actually had a pretty nice talk. Good enough that I decided to invite her to Ibiza, and she said okay, she'd come. So she came over and we spent a week together, and it was a really great time. Zero arguments, zero misunderstandings. It was actually almost perfect. Like a fairy tale, to the point where I started wondering if breaking up was the right decision. I had an evening before that to think it over, like, do I really want to get back with her? And I started to analyze it all very calmly. And even though my emotions were telling me yes, logic said no, that I'd go back to how it was before, that I know exactly why I broke up. I remembered all my reasons why it was worth ending that relationship those few months earlier, and I decided no, that it just can't be like that, that we'd probably just go back to how things were before. I had a hunch I should think it all through. Exactly, because the very next day, my then ex-girlfriend actually asked me directly if I would consider coming back to her if I had given it any thought at all. And I told her, yes, I had thought about it just yesterday, and I also mentioned that we are having a really nice and enjoyable time here together, spending time and so on, but I'm afraid we'll go back to how it was before. So, as gently as I could, I said that unfortunately, no, that she's a great girl, but we're not getting back together. And what totally shocked me at that moment, what really surprised me, was that she said, okay, no worries. I just wanted to ask because I want a clear conscience. But in that case, when you take me to the airport, please don't act like my boyfriend. Let's just act like friends, all right? I mean, let's just keep things friendly and simple between us. Only after I asked more did it turn out she'd met someone somewhere on the beach, because I was actually still working in Ibiza then. So she had a lot of free time on her hands. And when she went back to the same city. She met some guy there that she also liked, and she told me that straight out. At that moment, I experienced exactly the same thing as that client of mine I was just talking about firsthand. Even though I was already advising on how to get an ex back, even though I knew exactly how that strategy works. Of being a challenge, I didn't know it was so strong, that it was so powerful. Only at the moment when this girl used exactly that thing on me, that I knew, that I know how it works, but I also knew she was 100% sincere, that she was telling the truth, that it was convincing. That's when I felt my emotions rising. So I took her to the airport then, and I remember that moment when I was coming back from the airport by bus. And I felt that my absolutely unwavering decision that we were definitely not getting back together suddenly crumbled, that I really desperately wanted to get back with this girl, and only the last remnants of some self-discipline and logic were telling me that it's a bad decision. Rest, wait, cool down before you do anything about it. But really, this shows the power of this, the method, or the way this phenomenon worked, was that back then, my ex really had no way of convincing me to get back with her. No matter what she said, no matter what she did, no matter how much she showed she changed, she wouldn't have convinced me to go back to her. Even though things were actually quite good between us, she wasn't a challenge for me because I knew she was always within reach. Those emotions had no reason to return. Only when she shook that certainty of mine, only when I felt like I was truly losing her, those emotions came back instantly, and with such force that I couldn't have predicted how strongly it would affect me, to the point that I started trying, and after a while we actually got back together. However, what I predicted happened, meaning the same problems from before the breakup returned, and we split up again relatively quickly. So this also shows that being a challenge isn't enough. It's an absolutely essential ingredient for getting that ex back. But besides that, you have to put in the work to gain the most important relationship skills, draw conclusions as to why the breakup happened in the first place, and overcome the logical obstacles blocking your ex from returning. Because if in the meantime I saw my ex working on herself, going to therapy, working with a psychologist, going through books or courses on how to have a better relationship, I would have decided much sooner to try and win that relationship back. And then after getting back together, it probably wouldn't have fallen apart because my ex would be a slightly different person, more educated on how to manage that relationship. So being a challenge is one element of a larger strategy, but it's absolutely mandatory in every situation. All right, but what if you were the one who was more withdrawn throughout the relationship? What if throughout the whole relationship, even for the last few years, your ex was the one chasing you? She wanted you to try harder, complained that you were so distant, and finally got so tired of the situation, of not getting enough warmth and love from you, that she ended the relationship. You realize that you made a mistake. So in a situation like that, should you also be a challenge? And the answer is yes, you must also be a challenge. It's absolutely mandatory and necessary. I've heard many such stories, because if you aren't a challenge, that person's feelings won't be able to return. You have to treat the fact that you didn't try before as a logical obstacle. You have to let your ex know you did wrong, that you weren't committed, that you deeply regret it, and that only at the end, when she broke up with you, did you realize how much you truly loved her. But oh well, it didn't work out. Ultimately, you broke up and you'll never be together again. Everyone goes their own way. That should be your message. Even if inside you feel that you love this person very much. So your ex must understand that you see your mistakes, but at the same time, you're still a challenge, because without that, those emotions won't be able to return. That's it in a nutshell. I discuss it much more extensively, for instance, in our program, where we explain all these mechanisms and tailor the entire strategy to your specific situation. However, you must know that there is no excuse for not becoming a challenge. As I said, it's not beautiful, it's not pretty, it borders on manipulation, maybe it even is manipulation, but it works. But what's very important, especially in a situation where you have children with an ex and the ex clearly wants to fall in love with you, if they could make a decision to take some pill and those feelings immediately returned and you were in love again, they probably would. But there is no such pill. The closest thing to such a pill, to such an aphrodisiac, is precisely becoming a challenge and pretending a bit that this person is losing you so that those feelings can come alive again. It's not beautiful, but it simply works. And now, if you're in a situation where you're fighting for the love of your life and you know it's a truly valuable person, not some toxic relationship you want to return to for lack of anything better, my Relationship Psychology Institute, along with our entire team of expert psychologists, deals with repairing relationships in exactly such situations where it's already after a breakup, your ex wants absolutely nothing from you, and maybe doesn't even want to talk to you. We help you prepare an action plan and provide individual consultations, courses, and tools. We guide you through a whole program of deep personal metamorphosis that will give you incomparably greater chances of winning back that relationship. So if you want professional help in this regard, I invite you now to the website www.relationshipinstitute.pl and schedule your first free consultation, where we'll check if you have any real chance of getting this relationship back in your situation. And if so, we'll offer you a place in our program. This program is not cheap. Unfortunately, it's a whole staff of experts. They'll watch over you, and you'll get access not only to individual consultations, and that's for many, many hours, but also to workshops. Leave with NVC specialists, to workshops with other participants, and so on. So it's really comprehensive care. It's a lot of work that needs to be done, but if you're fighting for the love of your life, it's worth it. Even if it doesn't work out, I guarantee you it will be the best money you've ever invested in your life. This is a sentiment expressed by many, many participants of our program, regardless of whether they manage to get their ex or sometimes even their family back or not. That's why you should go to relationshipinstitute.pl right now and book your first free conversation. See you soon. Robert Marshall, relationshipinstitute.pl.